Suzuki, the former admiral and current fleet admiral of the Navy. What do we usually think about when we hear his name? Usually, we hear about him being one of the strongest members of the Navy currently, and possibly even all time. He also follows his philosophy of absolute justice, which means that he gets rid of any enemy of the Navy and world government at any cost. Which brings up the question, how strong would Sakazuki be if he was in the Golden Era, also known as Rogers, also known as the Pirate Kings era? Many people have indirectly answered this question whether they have realized it or not. Some people say that he doesn't make it far, and other people think that he clears the old gen and claim that the old gen is overrated. And by the way, I'll be using only pre-time skip Akainu for this video, and I'll make a part 2 for post-time skip Sakazuki when he becomes the fleet admiral. So during Marineford, Akainu was one of the 3 admirals alongside Aokiji and Kizaru, and he undoubtedly had the best showing. He undoubtedly had the best showings during the War of the Best between the Navy admirals themselves when they fought against the Whitebeard pirates. He was capable of punching a hole through Whitebeard's chest, and later on blew off half of his face. Not to mention, he turned a weakened ace into a glazed donut. And keep in mind that Whitebeard was already weakened by illness and other injuries at the time, and Marco himself stated that Whitebeard was in fact getting weaker, which naturally makes sense. And keep in mind that when he was getting weaker and his health started to deteriorate, he started to get a lot slower as well, which Marco did imply. And Whitebeard, while on this medicine, was stated to be the world's strongest pirate, and was capable of clashing with people like Shanks, another Emperor of the Sea alongside Whitebeard. And keep in mind that none of the admirals were able to damage Whitebeard until after his heart attack, and Whitebeard was casually able to deflect Akainu's and Kuzan's attacks. And people act like the admirals were these untouchable gods, godlike beings like Empty Hand, because of his performance against Whitebeard, but turning a blind eye to the fact that Whitebeard was weak to illness and injuries. Not to mention that one of the attacks Akainu got on Whitebeard was when he was off guard after falling to the ground from a heart attack. And not to mention Whitebeard was also able to get 2 hits on Akainu, and he ended up getting knocked down 6 feet under. And the fact that he didn't show up again until after Whitebeard's death could mean that he may have been knocked out for a bit. And even if you don't do that, at the very least, it would be a BFR, which you could argue would still be a result of Whitebeard winning. But then again, that's up to your interpretation. And honestly, in the state that Whitebeard was in, he was not even close to being the world's strongest pirate. And instead of being on the same tier as the Yonko like he would be when he was at his full power, he was an admiral level punching bag instead for the most part. And although Akainu was able to get up from two attacks from Whitebeard, even though Whitebeard was pretty much seconds away from seeing angels. And keep in mind that Garp was stated to be the strongest old man, and this would put him above even Whitebeard on his medicine when Whitebeard on his medicine is Whitebeard at his full power. And Garp would most definitely be stronger than the Whitebeard that was suffering from terminal stage 5 cancer. Now, why am I bringing this up? You will see why later, as this is pretty important to mention. And this would mean that Akainu would just scale to Deathbed Whitebeard, but you could argue that he will scale above Whitebeard at his weakest. But honestly, I don't think it's safe to scale Akainu above pre-heart attack Whitebeard regardless. And people chalk up his performance by saying he held back. However, this literally contradicts his philosophy of absolute justice, as I mentioned earlier. And even if you want to use this 10-day fight with Kuzan to claim that they were holding back, since they were able to permanently terraform an island. There's not enough evidence to suggest that they are capable of causing this much damage within a day. And honestly, who knows if they could even destroy the island within that little amount of time anyway. And even if you do want to say that they were holding back, the only thing that would be suppressed would be their DC, not necessarily their AP. Their AP would still stay the same. And don't forget don't forget the fact that Blackbeard was going to destroy Marineford, and it kind of didn't even do anything to try and stop him, which shows where his priorities were in protecting Marineford. If people like to use the statement about the admirals being the strongest Marines in the Navy to get them above people like Gargus and Goku. However, you can just chalk that up to their reputation, and even the post-time skip admirals were stated to be the strongest fighting force in the Navy, just like the pre-time skip admirals were. So by that logic, Fujitora will be stronger than Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, which doesn't make sense at all. And if you do think that, go take a shower and get out of your mom's basement. And keep in mind that Garb was offered the admiral position when he was in his prime, but turned it down 500,000 times. But at the end of the day, the highest you could scale any of the admirals would be to pre-heart attack Whitebeard, like I mentioned earlier. But keep in mind that Whitebeard was nowhere near his full strength either. And especially since Garb was stated to be the strongest old man, that will obviously even put him above a full power Whitebeard, like I mentioned earlier. And keep in mind that Garb has gotten weaker when he has gotten older, and since Prime Garb was relative to people like Roger, Prime Whitebeard, Prime Sengoku, and you could possibly put Prime Chinjao in the mix too. This would mean that those people I just mentioned would scale above Akainu by a decent margin. And keep in mind that Whitebeard was arguably the weakest Yonko at the time, due to his speed and durability decreasing drastically. Not to mention the other Yonko have better speed feats, and since Whitebeard was matching Akainu in speed, same with Marco, and he even moved fast enough to land a blow on Akainu, and was even able to match one of his attacks in speed. And on top of that, he even was able to react to Kizaru as well. So, and not to mention, even someone like Odin was able to brutalize Kaido, and he nearly killed him. And he only lost due to being caught off guard. And not to mention, he was even able to block an attack from Roger. And to be honest, it would have been very likely that Odin would have beaten Kaido anyway. And Kaido in base himself was able to match Big Mom for 3 days. And keep in mind that Kaido is faster in his hybrid form, and Big Mom without her homies was able to overwhelm and outspeed the same Marco that was able to react to the admirals in speed. I would also like to mention that Garb had a much easier time against Marco and even blitzed him than all 3 admirals did during Marineford, which helps my scaling of old Garb over the admirals. So by all that, therefore, Prime Garb would be stronger than Old Garb, and Old Garb would be greater than or relative to Old Whitebeard, and that same Old Whitebeard on this medication would be stronger than the Whitebeard at Marineford, who's at the who you can scale relative to any of the admirals. But pre-heart attack Whitebeard would arguably scale above any admiral. And also another line of scaling would be Odin over base Kaido, who's above Marco, who should be relative to Akainu at the very least in speed. And don't forget that old man Rayleigh as well, with this toy sword he got from Toys R Us, was able to press Kizaru, who again should also be relative to pre-time skip Akainu. And Rayleigh was able to hold him off until Kuma made the Straw Hats escape, and Kizaru got so pissed after that he captured 500 other pirates and couldn't even capture Rayleigh. And Rayleigh himself has stated multiple times that he's not as strong as he was in his prime, and due to that, even Prime Rayleigh would be stronger than Admiral Akainu. And there's one thing I do like to address. People use this fake scan / mistranslation to try and argue that old people in One Piece don't get weaker as they get older and they retain the same strength. However, if you actually pay attention to the manga, and if you actually read the actual translation of the SBS, Oda wrote, that same statement that people use to say that old people in One Piece don't get weaker, that was actually never stated at all. What was actually stated was that old people in One Piece can still be strong, but they technically still grow weaker than they were when they were in their prime. So the people who use that statement and say that old people just don't get weaker, it's just blatantly wrong, and it's kind of disingenuous. And so in conclusion, Marineford Akainu would not be any of the top tiers in the Golden Era, including people like Odin as well, if you consider him to be in the Golden Era. And to be honest, even if you put all the top tiers together against Akainu, they'll just run a train on his tracks. And to be honest, even if you pin them individually against him, they'll pull his tracks out. But anyway, that's the end of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, please feel free to like and subscribe, because that'll help me a lot, and I would really appreciate it as well. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.